Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vanapati Varadari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vanapati Varadari Jaya Radha Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vanapati Varadari Jaya Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vanapati Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vanapati Varadari Jaya Radha Madhava Shila Prabhupada ki, Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, from Srila Prabhupada Gita Volume 5. That's April 18th. Before going to Europe, Prabhupada responded to an invitation from his devotees in South India to attend a 3-day Pandal festival in Hyderabad. No sooner did he arrive at the airport in Hyderabad, however, than a group of reporters asked him for a press conference. Prabhupada consented, and the reporter opened with a technical philosophical question, inquiring whether Prabhupada's philosophy was Advaita or Dvaita. South India was steeped in an ancient philosophical debate between the Vaishnavas and the Shankarites. That here an ordinary news reporter was concerned with comparative philosophies. Prabhupada scoffed at the question. What is the point of discussing such things, he challenged, whether one is Dvaita or Advaita. Krishna says, Anadir Bhavantu Bhutani. Ana means grains. The people have no grains. Grains are produced from the rains, and rains from sacrifice. So perform sacrifice. You have to divide the society into 4 orders. You may be Dvaita or Advaita, but you need grace. Prabhupada's secretary wrote to Bhagavan in Paris, keeping him informed of Prabhupada's location and schedule. You can contact us here until the 29th or 30th of April, after which you will be back to Bombay. Your idea for festival sounds nice. Here they had a 3-day pandal. Last night about 1,000 people came, sat very silently through his whole lecture, and then pressed forward to receive blessings from Srila Prabhupada. Devotees had a deities on stage, and a Vyasasan, and a lot of prasadam for the guests. April 25. From Hyderabad, Srila Prabhupada flew to Tirupati. There in mountainous Tirumala stands the richest temple in India, where a deity of Vishnu known as Balaji resides. The temple managers respectfully welcomed Srila Prabhupada and his party, providing them with 2 cottages on the mountain side. According to temple policy, people usually have to wait in a long line before seeing the deity, since 15,000 people enter temple daily, and they are given only a brief darshan. Non-Hindus are usually not allowed, but Srila Prabhupada and his disciples received the special honor of a private darshan of Balaji. At the end of a long inner sanctum, its entrance guarded by 2 large figures of Jai and Vijay, the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, the deity was enthroned. The only light in the inner sanctum came from flaming torches affixed to the walls or held by the pujaris. When approaching the deity in the hallway, many pilgrims would traditionally call out, Govinda! But as Prabhupada entered, he sang, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Later in his cottage, Prabhupada remarked that the millions of people going to see Balaji were proof that the masses are still attracted to God, despite government propaganda. Although most people may go to the Lord for alleviating material distress or for getting money, still they call out the holy name Govinda. A devotee asked Prabhupada why the deity was called Balaji. Balaji, Prabhupada said, means child, Krishna as a cowherd boy, not in his Vaikuntha aspect. Prabhupada was pleased to stay in the cottage and take the deity's prasadam. He suggested that in New Vrindavan, they build cottages like this, and that ISKCON build temples like the temple of Balaji, with its gold dome and extensive facility for visitors. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Reading from Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 5, Chapter 1. Text number 23. Iti ha bhava sa jagati patir ishvare chaya diniveshita Karmadikaro Iti Vavasa Jagati Patir Ishvare Chayadi Niveshita Karmadikaro Iti Vavasa Jagati Patir Ishvare Chayadi Niveshita Karmadikaro Kila Jagat Bandha Dvamsana Paranubhavasya Bhagavatam Adi Kila Jagat Bandha Dvamsana Paranubhavasya Bhagavata Adi Purushasyangri Yugalana Bharata Dhyananubhavena Parirandita Purushasyangri Yugalana Bharata Dhyananubhavena parirandita. Kashaya Shrayo Vadato I Manavardano Mahatan Mahitalam Anushashasa. Kashaya Shrayo Vadato I Manavardano Mahatam Mahitalam Anushashasa. Itiha vasa jagati patir vivarecha yadi niveshita karmadi karo. Kila jagat bandhan sana parana nubhavasya bhagavata adi. Purushasya griyugalana varata dhyananubhavena parirandita. Kashaya shrayo vadatopi manavadano mahata mahitalam anushashasa.
Itiha vavasa jagati patya ishvare chayati veshita kamadikaro.
Itiha vavasa jagati patir ishvare chayadi niveshita karmadikaro.
Kina jagat bandha vamsana paramubhavasya bhagavata adi.
Kila jagadvandhavam sana paramubhavasya bhagavata adi.
Purushasya kritu yuvanama varata dhyana rupadena parivedandika.
Purushasya griyugalana varata dhyananubhavena parirandita.
Kashaya shayo valatopi mana vagano mahatam mahitalam anushashasa.
Kashaya shaya vadatopi manavardhano mahatam mahitalam anushashasa.
Itihavasi sa jagatpatri ishivara sika karmata karo.
That's not it. We'll just skip it. Iti, thus. Havava, indeed. Saha, he. Jagatipati, the emperor of the whole universe. Ishvara Ichaya, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Adiniveshita, completely engaged. Karma Adhikara, in material affairs. Akila Jagat, of the entire universe. Bandha, bondage. Dvamsana, destroying. Para, transcendental. Anubhavasya, whose influence. Bhagavata, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Adi Purushasya, the original person. Angry, on the lotus feet. Yugala, two. Anavarata, constant. Dhyana Anubhavena, by meditation. Parirandita, destroyed. Kashaya, all the dirty things. Ashaya, in his heart. Avadata, completely pure. Api, although. Mana Vardhana, just to give honor. Mahatam, to superiors. Mahitalam, the material world. Anushashasa, road. Translation of the Lord by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. Following the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maharaj Priyavrata, fully engaged in worldly affairs, yet he always thought of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are the cause of liberation from all material attachment. Although Priyavrata Maharaj was completely freed from all material contamination, he ruled material world just to honor the orders of his superiors. Purport. The word Mana Vardhano Mahatan, just to show honor to superiors, is very significant. Although Maharaj Priyavrata was already a liberated person and had no attraction for material things, he engaged himself fully in governmental affairs just to show respect to Lord Brahma. Arjuna had also acted in the same way. Arjuna had no desire to participate in political affairs or the fighting at Kurukshetra, but when ordered to do so by the Supreme Lord, Krishna executed those duties very nicely. One who always thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord is certainly above all the contamination of the material world. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Yoginamapi sarvesham madgatena taratmana shadavan bhajate yomam samyuktatamomataha. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Bhagavad Gita 6:47. Maharaj Priyavrata, therefore, was a liberated person and was among the highest of yogis, yet superficially he became the emperor of the universe in accordance with the order of Lord Brahma. Showing respect to his superior in this way was another of his extraordinary qualifications. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 6:17-28, Narayana parasarve nakutashana vidyati svarga pavarga narakeshu apirtu yarta darshana. A devotee who is actually advanced is not afraid of anything, provided he has the opportunity to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the proper explanation of why Priyavrata engaged in worldly affairs, although he was a liberated person. Also, only because of this principle does a Mahabhagavat, who has nothing to do with the material world, come down to the second platform of devotional service to preach the glories of the Lord all over the world. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Padamayam Dadati Swadatika Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parijanasatam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sundari Nabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranami Haripriya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyatyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karati Vachalam Pangu Langayate Girim Yatripata Mahamandi Shri Guru Divataranam. By the best spiritual master of life, man can see the stars. Lame man can cross the mountains, and dumb man can speak eloquently. I do offer my respectful obeisances unto what is written my spiritual master. Namo Krishna 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 Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tamam Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachari Krishna Krishna. So the translation again. Following the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maharaj Priyavrata, fully engaged in worldly affairs, yet he always thought of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are the cause of liberation from all material attachment. Although Priyavrata Maharaj was completely freed from all material contamination, he ruled the material world just to honor the orders of his superiors. This is a very interesting principle being explained by this example of Maharaj Priyavrata. Srimad Bhagavatam really kind of tends or actually is aiming, and it is successful if you are open to learn, to put upside down or turn upside down all the material conceptions that we may have. And as we discussed a little bit earlier, the material conception of detachment or being a liberated soul. Usually people have a certain idea of what it means, some sort of monk in the Himalayas is living in a small cottage, or there's a temple and they just meditate all day long, and that means detachment, eating plain rice with no salt, that kind of thing, that is considered, a general idea of detachment in material world. And Maharaj Priyavrata was kind of living that kind of lifestyle for a little while because he didn't have any interest in anything material. However, this inquiry came up. There was a need to rule the universe, and it was the will of the Lord that Lord Brahma asked Maharaj Priyavrata and Swayambhuva Manu, his father. They all had this desire. They needed a qualified person to rule the world. And so the Lord of the universe himself came down to ask for this, to take up this service. So why like a completely detached person from the whole world? It didn't have any material desire, any ambition. The only thing that they wanted is to serve the Lord. Why such a person is considered the most qualified to rule the world if he is completely detached? And this is a very significant lesson for us. Usually we think, okay, a person, very ambitious people, they want to get to the top and then, do something, rule the world, rule the planet, rule the company, or whatever, it seems to be that a person who gets to the top, at least the examples that we see in a more modern world, the people who get to the top are all extremely ambitious and very material ambitions in terms of the profit or in terms of the power, in terms of, some strong motivation is there. Here we see in a standard of Bhagavatam, this is considered actually the biggest disqualification, to be like very thirsty for power, being very motivated for some sort of financial gain, and having this thirst to control, etc., be in charge. From this point of view, because there was plenty, I'm sure, was plenty people like that, to choose from for Swayambhuva Manu, for Lord Brahma. But they went to the Himalayas, to the person, he gave up everything, he became convinced by Narada Muni, there is no point in this material world, he become completely detached, just meditated happily on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they came to him and they said, hey, can you take up the post to rule the universe? Why such a person is the most qualified to rule, who is completely detached from material world? And it's not the only example. As well, Prabhupada himself, as well, our founder Acharya, he had a business, and it was quite successful business. Apparently, once astrologers said that he had actually technically speaking, had the potential to become the richest person in India in terms of his kind of astrological chart, or at least some part of it. But the spiritual master has appeared. In fact, from 1922, when he met his spiritual master for the first time, spiritual master said, "You're an intelligent young person. Can you share this Krishna consciousness in English language?" And then later on, he was still married when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati started to appear in his dreams, urging, encouraging him to renounce the order of life. And he understood that this is the calling, and he was kind of quite bewildered and didn't know what to do. But he started to work towards that, slowly, and until his business failed, and then he felt, okay, this is the time now to execute this mission and instruction of his superior spiritual master, and he kind of pursued that kind of calling and that inquiry from superior. So you can see that. So there's a few lessons there, and so we start from this point of why completely detached person is best for ruling or managing, the world. And as we can see in the modern day, when modern day leaders are very materially attached, and there are even some people who may have some desire to do something good for the people. Often, either they cannot do so much when they get to the top because the party politics is such. You don't have your own independent will of doing something. You have to do the party politics, otherwise you will, you will become, you won't be supported by the party, and you may just remain on your own, without any powers eventually. So there's a party politics that you have to follow, even if you have some inclination. But also, often by the time you reach that very high post, the various types of temptations are offered to you. Let's say you just want to do all good, I just want to work for the people, just want the best for the people, etc. And then you are kind of working towards that, but then you get offered many temptations. What about if you do this, you get a big profit? It may not be so good for the people, but it will be good for you, and it will be good for some corporation. And you just have to oversee something, overlook, or make a little decision, and your life will be very happy. You can go to some Hawaii, for holidays, etc. So you start, if you are not detached, then it's very easy for you to succumb to many temptations. What about this post? What about this position? What about this bribe? What about this corruption opportunity? So, as soon as you do one thing, it's like a planting the seed. Just like we have a planting the seed of devotion. Every time we plant the seed of, I compromise the values and compromise the principles, you get again and again and again another opportunities, and you can become completely off track. You started with a good intentions, and then a few years later you completely compromise your values because you couldn't control your senses. So because you're very materially attached, you want the position, power, or money, or wealth, and you just get deviated. You get distracted from that. Even a noble goal may be there. You can get lost in those material goals. So that's why a person who is detached is it can be the best well-wisher, and that detachment can come by experiencing higher taste. It's not really possible just to give up, that thirst for money, power, or control, or etc. Unless you experience higher taste, that will automatically be there because that's the propensity of materially contaminated mind that manifests in a kind of subtle sex desire to control and to rule, but by experiencing higher taste, one can be fixed in consciousness. So Priyavrata Maharaj was completely detached in that way, and therefore Lord Brahma and his superiors, they consider him a best person to rule, because also another thing is that a person who is detached won't be so much concerned about his own personal ambitions, etc., etc. Then one can truly care for other people as well. When that detachment is there, then you can really focus instead of your own personal ambitions that push you and drag you, certain modes, mode of passion. You have this great ambitions to fulfill in your own personal, whatever the case may be. But when detachment is there, then you can provide a very good care as well for the people. You can focus on what are the needs of the people, how people can be physically taken care of, emotionally, and also spiritually, because that's a person who is God conscious again, like Maharaj Priyavrata. He had this full realization, was a liberated soul. So therefore, a part of physical, emotional support that King provides to the citizens, it was also the most important goal. Is was representative of God to help people to become God conscious and Krishna conscious. So with that leadership as a king, he again was the most qualified person in the entire universe that the Lord Brahma himself came to ask, can you take up this post? Because Lord Brahma knows the purpose of the universe, why it was created. At the time of meeting Krishna, after he meditated in the beginning of the universe, he received the instructions and purpose of the universe. And the first one is to help the misguided living entities to fulfill their material desires. But more importantly, is to become attain God consciousness, become Krishna conscious, and go back to Godhead. So Lord Brahma is very much focused on that goal. He's also ahead of our sampradaya. So when you saw this person is qualified, Priyavrata Maharaj. So when you saw this very qualified person that would help to fulfill Lord's mission, Lord Brahma's mission, he said, okay, we have to get this super qualified person into this post to rule the world. So despite even the fact that Narada Muni preached to this Priyavrata Maharaj, and he became completely detached and focused on Krishna consciousness, he was asked to take up this post of ruling the planet. So this detachment helps to be a good ruler, and also being Krishna conscious, it helps to fulfill the need of the ruler to give, or the purpose of the ruler is to actually bring people closer to Krishna. There's even a verse somewhere that one should not become a father, or all the different posts that mentioned, father, ruler, king, if one cannot deliver its dependence. So that's a very, very significant purpose, is to deliver those dependents, and Maharaj Priyavrata was very qualified for this. His another qualification was that he was very he was submissive to his superiors, Prabhupada said that was his one of his extraordinary qualifications, because he was completely detached and from material world. He still took up the service being asked by Lord Brahma. So the service attitude is very, very important, even when maybe detached from material world. If he's asked to do as service, which may even look like a very material type of service externally may look something mundane, but even if it's asked, by superiors and it is connected to Guru Parampara, then that becomes transcendental. That's even material look at service that look make mundane material activity, whatever the case may be, it's becomes fully transcendental when it is done in the service of the Lord under the guidance of the superiors. So that's another significant lesson that we can see from Maharaj Priyavrata's life. The service attitude is the essence of advancement, actually, because we can find different types of qualifications of what advancement means. But we can see Maharaj Priyavrata was extremely, he was a prince, he was a very extremely qualified person, and he went to Himalayas. But when he was asked, to do even a thing that he didn't want to, he actually didn't want to do it, but he was asked by superiors, he kind of surrendered to it. And this is another very significant example for us to follow. That sometimes we may get asked to do things that we may not want to do, or it may even look like this is something maybe mundane or not according to my nature, etc. That if you are asked and you will surrender to it, the same happened to Arjuna as well. He wasn't, as mentioned in the purport, he also wasn't so inclined to participate in this war. It was a political affair, and externally it looked like there was some material ambition involved there. But it was Krishna's desire. Krishna wanted it, and he asked Arjuna to fight. And also it was even nature of Arjuna to fight, and he wanted to give up that as well and just meditate. And because he surrendered to it, is now glorified as the greatest devotee of the Lord. So these are very significant things for us to learn. This service attitude and service spirit, enthusiasm to serve is at the heart of Krishna consciousness, the heart of Bhakti Yoga, and all our study and hearing and chanting that culminates in enthusiasm to serve, that we want to do devotional service, whatever we are asked to do. This is another very significant point. And also, one may think that maybe I'll get like a material contaminated or something. But as you can see again, Prabhupada says a devotee is actually advanced. Who is actually advanced is not afraid of anything, provided he has opportunity to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada as well, he had this very happy life in Radha Damodar temple. He was in a holy dham. He was absorbed in Srimad Bhagavatam. He was basically a very, very advanced Mahabhagavata devotee. We could have been just happily there staying in Vrindavan, but as we read here, but Mahabhagavata comes down to second platform to preach the glories of the Lord all over the world. So he received this order. Rupa Goswami came into his dream where he had a vision of Rupa Goswami, according to some information, that he was encouraging, now is the time, you're kind of ready. You are ready to go now to the West. And even he had this very happy situation, and at times he admitted, he was traveling around the world, and some temples were very opulent. He said, deep in my heart, I'm longing for that simplicity of Radha temple. And he felt, very happy and in this kind of detached position, simply just absorbed in hearing and chanting, translating Bhagavatam. But because it was ordered coming from his Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and then Rupa Goswami, then he executed, and this order accepted many inconveniences. And this is the pure devotional platform, is to cultivate the spirit of pure devotion. So, are there any questions or comments about this point?
Yes, thank you for the lecture. Something came to my mind that in this case of Maharaj Priya Bhatta, that Lord Brahma appeared personally and has given him this order to rule the whole universe. Or in case of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Rupa Goswami appeared in his dreams to execute his mission. And my question is, does that also happen nowadays to many devotees, that they have personal encounters with lords, or that someone appears in their dreams? Or is that quite rare nowadays because devotees might have not so much faith or so much trust in the Lord's orders? For me, I can speak personally that I sometimes get some signs, but it's not so clear what does it mean, and I have to struggle, I have to find out for myself what does Lord Krishna from me to do, what he wants me to do. But it's not so clear that he appears personally or in my dreams. So
those kind of instruction and vision happens in a very advanced pure devotional platform. But we can know what the Lord warns, like Lord Brahma, it is says here in this example, Lord Brahma, that actually it was the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it may not be necessary that Lord Brahma just Krishna told him, and it was not necessary that Krishna told Lord Brahma, I want Priyavrat to be the ruler of the world. But Lord Brahma, being a head of Sampradaya, and being, a pure devotee, as Lord Brahma is a pure devotee, head of our Sampradaya, he knows the will of the Lord. Because of that advancement in purity, he knows that the Lord is most pleased in this specific case when the ruler is a pure devotee of the Lord. That will benefit the world, that will benefit everyone, and he doesn't want a pure devotee, Rajarshi in charge. But for the rest of the world who are not, on that pure devotional platform, because a pure devotee is rendering a pure devotional service to the Lord, and the Lord accepts that pure devotional service. So in order to please the Lord, we don't approach the Lord directly. We render service to the Lord through His representatives, and this is how we know the will of the Lord. This comes to the Guru Parampara and through disciplic succession. Prabhupada, he executed the orders of his spiritual master, and he gave very clear, instructions for ISKCON, and he also established, very clear system as well how to distribute and execute his orders and his vision and his mission. Government body commission is there. There is, temple presidents, there is gurus. And there is, the parallel lines of authority, managerial authority, and spiritual authority. So these are the systems that Prabhupada established, that the order and the will gets distributed and reaches, the current chain of disciple, grand disciple, Bhakta, etc. Reaches as how to what to do and what is the mission and what Krishna wants us to do. it comes, through this managerial and through the spiritual authorities. But and if we execute that very sincerely, this guidance, teaching, instruction, then we become advanced, and also we then also start feeling that connection on a deeper level with Krishna as well. And in a stage like we read yesterday, an instruction that actually is foundational for ISKCON. When Srila Prabhupada, he received his order to teach in English in 1922. Then later on, he was still householder and still business. He read Vishwanath Chakravarti's Thakur commentary on Bhagavad Gita 241, which is Vyavasayatamka Buddhi Rekeha Kuru Nandana Bahusha Karyananta Shabudhaya Vyavasayanam. That those who are in the spot are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. And those who are not, whatever the goes, the numbers, how the verse finishes. That intelligence is many branched, if you are not resolute, basically. Our beloved child, of course, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that this resolute determination is to serve the order and instruction of the spiritual master, and that is significant in the beginning, in the sadhana stage, but also even in the perfection. When we reach perfection, sadhya, it's still the order of spiritual master remains there. So one doesn't give up, the service to spiritual master. One achieves perfection, the devotional service. Still, that connection to spiritual master remains. And I believe it also was Dhruva Maharaj who accepted Narada Muni as his spiritual master, and the Lord Himself manifested Himself before him in 6 months due to his determined, fixed devotion. And at that point, he also declared to the Lord that he cannot give up his service to Narada Muni, even at the stage of perfection. So even when one reaches very, very advanced platform, that order remains life and soul of a devotee. And at the same time, and it is actually mystical, it says in Bhagavad Gita, how it works, that this Guru Parampara is simultaneously it's a simultaneously, this is what it says in chapter 18, text 75. Vyasa was the spiritual master of Sanjaya, and Sanjaya admits that it was by Vyasa's mercy that he could understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that one has to understand Krishna, not directly, but through the medium of the spiritual master. The spiritual master is the transparent medium, although it is true that the experience is still direct. This is the mystery of the cyclic succession. So one has to understand Krishna through medium of spiritual master, but the experience of Krishna at the same time is direct. So it's a simultaneously two things are happening. You're not approaching Krishna directly, you're approaching to the Guru and Guru Parampara. At the same time, because of your surrender in that way, the experience of Krishna is simultaneously also direct. And therefore devotees, who executed that sincerely, dedicated their life to the mission of Guru. So there are a number of examples where Krishna, appeared to the devotees, even in more modern days. There are examples, some devotees kind of humbly and confidentially revealed their experiences like that, like Shiva Swami, and just to say a couple of examples, such as Nandana Swami, they revealed, humbly there are encounters of kind of this very advanced kind of platform. I will not go too much into that, but just to mention that it does happen definitely in the modern day. And even there was a devotee here who departed in 1994, Srila Prabhupada's disciple. There's a book in our library called Simple for the Simple, who reached, like a very, very advanced platform of Krishna consciousness, and she revealed her spiritual identity, spiritual life. So one can read the book into our library. So it definitely happens.
Yeah, I would say the precondition is that you have to be obedient to the spiritual master's
Yes.
order. If not, then it cannot work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are some occasions in Srimad Bhagavatam when, devotees, they were not necessarily on pure devotional platform, where they had an encounter of the Lord, and Lord even appeared to them and said, what do you want? But at the same time, if they still had like a material desires. And it is also an expertise of spiritual master, like Narada Muni approached Dhruva Maharaj, and he said, just don't bother, you want to have this kingdom greater than Lord Brahma, just don't bother about it, just give up this desire, it's no value to it, there's no point. And Dhruva Maharaj at that point, he said, I value your instruction. And he was very respectful. So there is also a two-way communication as well, when we receive an instruction. And Dhruva Maharaj said, I'm really sorry, your instruction is very nice, but I cannot execute it. I just want this, it's too much, I have this very, very strong ambition. I just can't execute this. So Narada Muni at this point, you could have just totally chastised him, and but then he changed his strategy. He was expert to engage the propensity of Dhruva Maharaj, who had this material desire. He said, okay, if you want this, then chant the holy name, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He gave his mantra, and then he executed them, because basically Dhruva Maharaj at this point was practically prepared to reject instruction of Narada Muni because he had this very strong material desire. However, Narada Muni, being expert, he used that energy. Okay, you want this, but do it in a Krishna conscious way. Here is the mantra, and by this mantra, it will fulfill your desire to have a kingdom greater than Lord Brahma. And he had this very strong, intense desire, and then he accepted Narada Muni as spiritual master and executed the mantra. And in 6 months, his practice was so intense. In 6 months, you could see the Lord himself, but by that time, his material desire got purified. So that's also an expertise, we have this receiver, there may be very high instruction of rendering pure devotional service. And sometimes we are able to do it, and sometimes we may not be, and that is an expertise, a spiritual or managerial authority is also to kind of be able to engage your certain drive and propensity, and by doing that, one can become purified as well from. But yeah, it's still that, like in one sense, you can see that Dhruva Maharaj may not be fully obedient, but he had a certain desire, and by expertise of Narada Muni, he was able to draw that desire to still become obedient, because he was getting what he wanted. I wanted the kingdom of Lord Brahma, greater than Lord Brahma, and Narada Muni, by his expertise, he made him obedient because he wanted something. So that's also there, but we should try our best to be very obedient. And that's the essence in our devotional service. Pranada Pismisha, Prabhupada Pismisha, Namani Namanari Nakirtaniya Sadhavi. One should more tolerant and a greater grasp, more humble, and then that's the key that unlocks the taste for Krishna consciousness. To cultivate its service spirit and humility and humbleness. And if one, so for whatever reason, if one feels that not able to execute the instruction or order or guidance, one has to be very, very respectfully express that, not just, I won't do it, and that's it, but we have very humbly expressed that this is my situation, can you consider this? It doesn't say that this is possible, so those respectful dealings has to be there, it's important. I'm preaching this guilt, this class to myself because I'm really far from those principles myself. So stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande.